this week's episode of the Digital Diaries. A very special episode, a first, if you will. We are going transatlantic to Austin, Texas, where we will be speaking with Stephen Puri. Stephen is the CEO and founder of Sukha, a company who he's going to tell you all about. But he's had a stellar career beforehand, working in companies like DreamWorks and Fox. Stephen, a very warm welcome to the Digital Diaries.
I hope this is a fun and engaging episode, and who knows, maybe has some helpful tidbits. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yes,
now,
we can only hope
Stephen,
for the best.
We can. But Stephen, I gave a little intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. One, what you're doing with the Sukha Company, and two, how you got there along the way.
Absolutely. Okay. So for those playing at home or driving in the car and they're wondering, is this a good episode of Peter's? Should I listen to this one? Let me tell you what is going to be interesting about this so you can make a decision for yourself.
Love it.
I am one of the rare people you will meet that has been a senior executive at 2 film studios. I was an executive vice president for Kurtzman Dorsey at DreamWorks. I was a vice president of production at Fox, overseeing like Wolverine and Die Hard franchise, stuff like that. A lot of action movies, right? So
wow.
I know. Every guy over 30 is like, ooh, Die Hard. Let's talk about Die Hard. Is it a Christmas movie? Is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. John McClane is basically Jesus Christ. He's saving the innocent people. But anyway, I digress.
No. You want to go there? We will go there. I'll debate that with you. So here's the thing is I have been very fortunate in my life to have been trained as an engineer when I was little. My parents were both IBM engineers. So I was a software engineer when I was young, little code monkey, got into film through digital film. I went to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles and happened to be there by the luck of the draw when computers became powerful enough to manipulate film. Guess what? Here's a career for you, Mr. Puri. So I started producing digital film for a bunch of big directors because, you know, to get that budget on your film, you're not a first-time indie director. So I did the titles and the effects for True Lies with Jim Cameron, David Fincher's Seven, Braveheart, and Mortal Beloved with Mel Gibson. I worked with Jim Jarmusch and Johnny Depp on Dead Man, a whole bunch of stuff. Carlito's Way with De Palma. This is a whole bunch of stuff. And met Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin after they had done Stargate. So we teamed
You basically listed these action and sci-fi movies in one.
Dude, you're talking to one of the more lucky people you've met. I'd like to ascribe it to genius. Let's attribute it to luck and just be grateful. Okay?
We'll let the listeners decide in comments.
Okay. So that said, I produced the digital effects for Independence Day with Roland and Dean. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. A rising tide lifts all boats. So everyone involved in that. It was a great thing for all our careers. Roland, Dean, and I set up a company. My first company was created right after Independence Day. We raised about 15 million US, not pounds or euros or any of these funny currencies you've got over there. They're worth something now. So did that, ran that for 4 years. We sold that actually to a German media conglomerate called Das Werk. That's sort of like a Liberty Media in this country, be maybe a good analog.
Okay.
So I was like, end of my 20s, thinking, you know, as one does in their 20s, that I'm better looking and smarter and, you know, I actually am. Reality, you know, but there's a lot of luck involved. And I thought, okay, so I've sold a company. I have some money in my pocket. I have some recognition in my business. What do I want to do next? And I said, you know what? I've been making a portion of someone else's movies. Would it be possible to actually be one of the guys making the movie, like putting the movie together, finding the script and getting it financed and, you know, all that. So I decided to work my way up the studio ladder, which is how I ended up at DreamWorks. That was the era of Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye, Star Trek 11, Fringe, the TV series, Transformers Prime, the TV series, Hawaii Five-0, like a bunch of stuff like that, right? So super fun. Worked with some very smart guys there, Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi, who were great writers. You know, went to Fox. That was obviously, you know, the Die Hard, you know, Wolverine, all that kind of action stuff there. Had a moment there, and here's another big turn. Just going to hang a lantern on that, where I was working on Die Hard. Definitely a soulless movie. There's a reason why it was made. It makes money for the studio. You could put out a poster that said Die Hard. The analyst there could project, it will make this, even if there's no film in the can, by Sunday night, this many people have shown up at the box office with money, right? So it was going to get made. My boss, who was the chairman of Fox Film Entertainment, was very clear about like, hey man, like don't really care how good the script is. Just get this thing out while Bruce has a window of time to shoot it.
Yeah.
And that really was like, oh man, I'm going to wake up, be 40, 50 years old, be like cranking out Die Hard 19, telling my kids, paying for your college. But these are awful. I don't encourage anyone to see Die Hard 5. But Die Hard 1, brilliant film. And I'll tell you this, if you are a studio executive in action, every week several writers come sit on your sofa to pitch you their thing, and they will use Die Hard as a model of what they're doing. They will tell you how they're doing relates to Die Hard. It's Die Hard with a female hero. It's Die Hard on a spaceship. It's Die Hard this. It's Die Hard underwater. Because it's such a fantastic framework for that kind of action thriller. So that said, I was like, okay, things have been going relatively well, but what do I do now? And next big turn, I was like, the only other thing I know how to do is really engineering. So maybe I could find some problems that, are painful or appeal to me and see if they're engineering solutions. Did 2 startups after leaving Fox, raised about $3 million for both. Both failed. I felt humiliated. I left this senior executive job at, one of the 7 studios. All my friends were watching. This was before tech was kind of popular. This was still like, what? You're going to leave this glamorous business of film? We have red carpets. They don't have red carpets, right? We have craft services. They don't have, well, they do. So that said, I had a very hard time adjusting to how am I going to iterate and keep making solutions to problems that I find to be valuable. And that's how I hit upon this idea. A friend of mine who's an engineer at Groupon had said to me, hey, why don't we team up and make a to-do list app to help people be productive? And I was like, I don't have a great idea. I don't want to co-found that company with you because I don't have a great solution to that. But I'll help you for a while because I love you.
Yeah. Cool.
He had a child. In the course of that first year or two, he had a kid. And he's like, I got to go get a real job. I can't do a startup. And I had learned a lot about flow states. I had learned a lot about how high performers manage their mind and their energy to do great things. And I looked at that. I said, actually, I would love to buy the code base of that because I think I could turn it into something I believe in, which is helping people do great things, understand how to harness their mind and their energy to get into a flow state. And that is what I do now. And that third one, obviously, is the one that's turning out to be successful, whereas the 2 others were just massive embarrassments.
I prefer learnings, but quite seriously, you are taking things from them into this.
Painful learnings.
Yeah, well, growth is always painful. I always remember an old bit of the Wonder Years when Paul found out Harper's Woods, there was no old man Harper, and the voiceover just goes, the gaining of wisdom is never a pretty sight. But it made Paul a better man.
True. Yeah. You know what? A great reference that I wouldn't have thought of. Thank you for that.
Well, I'll keep it in the broader pop culture arena of flow state. So, author of God knows how many books, short stories, novels, and that have all been turned into movies is Stephen King.
Stephen King.
He is a master of flow state.
Oh, my Lord.
Do you want to tell the listeners? You obviously know, so go for it.
So how about we'll do this together, okay? Let me set the table because I know there's a portion of your audience that is like, I am a flow master. Every morning I set up my day before I get on my first Zoom and I do an hour or 2 of flow and it just like creates success, right? There are others who are like, I've heard of it. What the heck is it? Can someone please let me know before I'm lost? Okay, so let's just equal the playing field.
Sure.
There was a Hungarian-American psychologist, this dude, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I spent a long time learning how to pronounce his name properly. He died like 4 years ago, next month. And he had a thesis. He's like, high performers in these disparate fields, actors, artists, athletes, inventors, scientists, they seem to describe the concentrated states they go into, the states where they do the stuff that they're famous for, that moves the world forward. They describe them in very similar ways. What's up with that? How do they do it? What is it? So like Prometheus, he wanted to go up to the mount, steal fire, bring it down to the rest of us. After he finished his little exploration, he wrote the book Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is from that book that we derive the term flow state. And he said, flow is the best metaphor I could find to describe that we're all on the water paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align yourself with the current, it magnifies your efforts to go further and faster. And many people since then, in the intervening, several decades, have written great stuff to extend this. People have dug down on, well, how does music relate to flow? How does, distraction? How does this? How does dopamine? How do we've all heard different terms for it. There's that famous Michael Jordan, the basketball player, quote about when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball.
Yeah.
Which is him describing one of the aspects of what Mihai found, which is the world gets reduced down to exactly what's important. Distractions fall away, time falls away, and you're doing your best work and you're doing it quickly. So that is what Peter's making reference to. And this has obviously been applied with some great writers. Do you want to take the talking stick?
So as you were talking, you couldn't help but actually remind me. I was thinking of Stephen King. We'll touch on that, but you also reminded me of John and Paul with the Beatles. But for Stephen King, his approach, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the Beatles as well. But
yeah, listeners, that's a new one to me.
So Stephen King, it just takes the attitude of get down and start writing, and just keep writing, and the story will come. Now, a lot of writers will say, contrary to that, no, you should think about this or you should think about that. He's like, just writing. So the only image I want you to take is imagine him using a typewriter with paper, because he would have done earlier in his career if he still doesn't today. How much is on the floor that we haven't seen? Like, imagine if you were an aspiring writer looking for ideas. I'm sure there are ideas on Stephen King's basement and all over his house of ideas that would just be the stories of next great movies that he thought, no, that's not my best work, and threw it away. But if you think of it from the 80s, paranormal and sci-fi type movies that he did, through to something more mainstream like Shawshank Redemption, these were things that were truly iconic, all because he was able to get into a flow state and just let this creativity come. And that is where it actually ties to the Beatles. It was the same thing. So when they made it and they were like, how do we keep churning hit after hit? I mean, if you think about it, they went from 62 to 70 and they had 2 albums out in a year at a time. Things that just don't happen now. Now you've got kind of a 2 to 3 year wait between albums in most cases.
Right.
Taylor Swift being the only exception, maybe. But it was commonly on a Sunday afternoon is Paul McCartney would get his limo driver would take him over to John's house, and they would just sit there and write songs and drink tea and coffee. And they didn't drink alcohol. They may have done drugs, I don't know. But that's actually
who's judging?
Who's judging? It's creative inspiration. But one of the ideas of their songs came from Paul's limo driver. Paul
really?
says, yes. He says, you work much? And he said, 8 days a week. And that was the day they wrote 8 days a week. And
Things
they were
that
always
I learned on Peter's podcast. This is great. This is like a two-way street. I'm very flattered.
Thank you very much. But it was the flow state. When Paul McCartney describes it in his book, it was written by Barry Miles, one of their roadies. He is just describing this thing of we throw everything down, we hit it on the guitar, what comes out. And that's why if I ever want to know whose idea the song was, the general rule of thumb is whoever the lead singer is. So if Paul's lead singing, it was his. If John's, it was his. And then in the later years, George comes into his own. And, that's why when I saw Jersey Boys, I felt so bad, because one of them wanted to go home and he goes, imagine there were 4 guys in a band and you were the Ringo, which was such a compliment to 3 members of the Beatles. But I always say I have a soft spot for Ringo because he kept a levelness to the band in a way that I don't think they'd have lasted as long without him, personally.
There you go. Okay. Things we're exploring today. Yes, and improvisational jazz often comes up relating flow. Yeah.
So any examples of jazz players when we talk of flow state? I mean,
I would love to say that I have more than a dilettantish knowledge of jazz. That is all that I have. So I'm not going to make some deep Birdland reference and you'd be like, oh, I admire it.
I know nothing about jazz. That's what I was asking. I just know that I like certain sounds and I go with it.
Yes.
But in my continual cultural learning. So tell us about then how flow led you into Sukha and what you're doing now.
You know what's interesting is, and let me share a couple thoughts about productivity, because I have a strong thesis. The same way Mihai had his thesis, I have a strong thesis that we all have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? And in the modern world, that tug of war for your life,
Mm-hmm.
on one side, they're the trillion-dollar companies who used to be somewhat embarrassed about this, but they're not anymore. They put it right in their S1s, right in their quarterly reports. Their business model is steal your life. Period. Full stop. That's it. And they laugh about it. When they go to DC now and, Washington, DC here and have to testify, they're not hiding it. They're just like, yeah, that's what we do. And they have the most money. So the best paychecks, if you are a really great behavioral psychologist, a UI UX designer, an engineer, are to work for one of those companies for a Mark, for an Elon, for, an Evan. And when you think about like, okay, what am I going to do while I'm here? There is a very painful realization that tug of rope, that tug of war with that rope is being pulled by these forces on one side. On the other side, it's you alone.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what I do is say, okay, what are the impediments that I have to actually do something great with my life now? Because I've seen great writers, great directors, great engineers, great, developers work. They have a lot of common habits. Like Mihai was
Mm-hmm.
like, I see this pattern. Like, how do I repeat it? So let me give you some concrete examples. So this is not an abstract podcast where we're talking about the color of the clouds, which, by the way, are white. So that said, there is a concept of chronotype, and I've seen this used very powerfully. Chronotype is the concept that you are more adept at doing certain things at certain times of day. The first time I encountered this, a
Mm-hmm.
screenwriter named Ron Bass, who, My Best Friend's Wedding, Rain Man, like a bunch of those 80s, 90s kind of movies. And he was famous for not talking to his family in the morning. He's like, I'm not the dad who's going to be like, hey, who wants flapjacks? Did you do your homework? Who needs a ride to school? He's like, I can't talk to you because after I talk to you, I can't hear my characters' voices in my head. And that's what I get $1 to $2 million a script for. So that was his deal with his family. And of course, his family was like, hey, Dad, you go write those $2 million scripts. We can make our own pancakes. We're good, Dad, But it was interesting that he was that aware of his chronotype. He's like, he would get up 3, 4, 5 in the morning just to have 3 or 4 hours in the morning to do that dialogue. And he would write the dialogue where stars, like Julia, like Tom, like Dustin, they have a stack of scripts with
Yeah,
checks
yeah.
stapled to the top that they could choose among. And they would choose his. I want to play this character and say these words in my spring slot. So he was that good. He could do collaborative stuff in the afternoons, and he booked his day in very specific ways so that he optimized his time so he could be with his family in the evening. And I admire that. I think that sensitivity to, I can hit it out of the park doing these things in these windows. Great. Now, do you need anyone's app, anyone's platform, pay anyone to learn this? No. Take a piece of paper and a pencil, draw a little grid for Monday through Friday, morning and afternoon. Very rough, not by the minute. For a week or two, jot down what you did. Hey, 8 to 10 a.m., I worked on blog posts. How'd you feel? 1 to 3 p.m., I returned emails. How'd you feel? You look at that after 5 to 10 days, you will see your patterns. And you'd be like, oh my God, I'm an idiot to spend my morning brain power returning emails or doing clerical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I should be writing code. I should be organizing my week. I should be optimizing my sales strategy. And yeah, in the afternoon, I can do all the chatty stuff. Like I'm on 1 to 5 p.m. I can just gift a gab, but I shouldn't be doing that at 8 in the morning. And you learn those things only if you reflect, and it's free. You can learn that for free. I'll tell you another technique I saw that's free. This is not about necessarily the Sukha or
Yeah.
anybody's app, which is I saw a number of them powerfully use space,
Okay.
like mental associations with spaces. And I first saw this is back in the Independence Day days. Roland and Dean, who were the director and producer, they co-wrote. They had a rental, this vacation rental that they would use down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, in the hills. Apparently some beautiful white marble house. I've never been there. And they would go there to write. And I asked Dean about it once. He said, there's a room there where in the morning the light comes in over the pool and it just inspires us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about our agents. We don't think about, will we get the right cast? Will the studio fight us over the budget? We just go, what would we go to see? And so when they were going to have to write this next one, Roland told his assistant, and I can't do a good German accent, and I apologize for that, but it was like, Joey, rent the villa, Joey, And Joey came back and was like, it's rented. And it was like an Airbnb before Airbnb. It was just like, somebody else has it. Roland called his entertainment attorney, John Deemer, who's a fantastic attorney. John, buy the villa. By Monday, Roland owned a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta. Where those renters went, I do not know, but they were not there on Monday. And they went down there and they wrote for like 6-7 weeks. They came back with the script that became the third highest grossing movie in film history. And they knew there
Jeez.
was something about that space that got them in that place. And this is not to say that you have to have billions of dollars to buy a villa. No. When I was working with Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi at DreamWorks,
Yeah.
these are great guys. These are guys who wrote the Zorro sequel, The Island, Mission Impossible 3, Transformers 1 and 2, just tons of stuff. And genuinely
Yeah.
like good guys you would want to have over for dinner, like we were friends. And when they got into the crunch, oh man, we have 3 weeks to do the Transformers 2 rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
They had their assistant rent a room at the Universal Hilton, which was across the street. We were at the little Amblin compound, the DreamWorks compound on the Universal Studios lot. So across the street, Lankershim, there's the Universal Hilton, which, to be blunt, it's where you stay the night before with your kids before you go on the rides. You know what I mean? This is not luxury property. It's like serviceable, and they know why people stay there. But they would rent a room there for several weeks. What I learned with them was it was a very similar thing, which is I realized they had met back in school. And that experience of being in the hotel room, that matched their memories of being in a dorm room, of being like the scrappy writers who had to prove that they were great. So the thing of like Kurtzman sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop, and maybe Bob at the desk, that brought them to that space of like, okay, we got to prove that we can do it, you know, sort of thing. And they would go write $1 million scripts again, but in a very different way. But they used the same technique. And things like that I find fascinating when you see them, when you see the pattern, you see that replicated. I've been talking a long time. I'm going to be quiet and let you say intelligent things.
Well, I mean, that's questionable if I'm the host saying intelligent things. But to that point, I think you're right. It's not about actually having all this money to buy things. It is about identifying those states and going, actually, if this space can help me, and how do I create that to make it go back to a point where I was really good at something? So if you're in a state where you don't feel productive or you don't have a sense of control, think back to that time in your life when you were like, I was nailing it then. I was on the ball every day. People were coming to me for advice, for tips. I was crushing every project I was on. I was smashing every sales pipeline. You need to go back and think of that.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask some very specific questions of you, and then let's
Mm-hmm.
use that as an entree to talk about solutions. So
Sure.
I know for myself, there were two big problems that I have that were impediments towards my being more productive or as productive as I could be.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was procrastination getting going in the morning. I would always get going later than I thought I would. I'd scroll the news or be, and the other one was I get distracted. Like if I was doing something, I sort of hit like the thing I'm doing right now has some obstacle. It's causing me to think too much. I would reach for my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Check my WhatsApp. Oh, hey, let's see if Peter, messaged. I wonder what Laura's doing, sort of thing. Laura's my wife.
Yeah. Hi,
That,
Laurie.
yeah, exactly. She's downstairs. She's awesome. Should you ever become friends with both of us, she's the one you will love. She's like adorable.
Do you
So
know, that's something we have in common. My wife's Neve, and people like her better too. So we've loads in common.
I'm just saying, you see that? You get it. You get what that's like, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so good to see you. Is Laura with you? Yeah, she's here. So going back to this, procrastination, the cold start thing in the morning, that was a thing for me. And I'll talk to you about solutions for that. And the other was the distractions being made by these companies are so beautifully done. The dopamine addiction, right?
Yep.
That is the thing. What are the obstacles for you? Just one or two where you're like, this gets me, that gets me.
So absolutely the phone one is total suckered in, to 100% go. And then I do find it really difficult to say no to somebody when they come to the desk. And not even to say no, but to say, can I come back to you in 30 minutes? I find that really difficult. I allow that interruption all the time.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me relate a couple things that I found that helped me to respect my flow state practice. And for those listening who are wondering, could I integrate flow states into my day? Would it work? Here's the deal. It's just an hour or two when you say, I may have 2 to 3 hours worth of like deep thinking to do, the kind of thinking that moves you or moves your team forward, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
returning emails or slacks. Like the thing where you walk into the staff meeting and you're like, I was thinking about blah, and everyone kind of shuts up and goes, we should do that now. Like, that's a great idea, right? So that comes out of what Cal Newport would say deep work. Mihai would say flow
Mm-hmm.
states. Like that's sort of like really letting your brain go. So if each day you need an hour, 2 hours, something to set up your day to win, or come up with a long-term strategy so you're not just running on the treadmill every day, things like that. You may say, hey, you know what? The way my brain works, 8 to 9 a.m., I'm just going to budget as flow time. And here's
Mm-hmm.
the deal. Keep it sacred. Respect it. Put it in your calendar like you have a meeting with yourself so you don't shortchange yourself, because that planning, that deep work time pays multiplicable rewards. It's just painful to think about giving that up
Mm-hmm.
just because you allowed people like Peter, you said, to come up and grab your time, grab your attention, right? Just like a
Mm-hmm.
phone attention. So that idea of time blocking and
Mm-hmm.
making commitment to it is fantastic. And it's like a muscle. When you do it for 5 days straight, come Monday the next week, you sort of itch for it. You're like, I'm really good at this. This is an amazing feeling when you look up and like things have flown by. My first flow state, I was flying from Austin here to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flight, I wanted to illustrate an idea I had for a feature.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd go into Figma and, in my own hacky way, mock it up well enough to demonstrate, and, we could discuss whether we wanted to make it. I got on the plane. It was Alaska, has that nonstop route.
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi was out. We landed like 15 minutes later. And I thought something terrible happened. They're not going to tell us until we're on the ground, but we're landing like in Dallas. The engine fell off. Like something horrible has happened because we took off 15 minutes ago. I actually looked at my laptop. Over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no conception of it. But my designs were done. I couldn't tell you if the drink cart came by. I couldn't tell you what my seatmate's name was. I hadn't gone to the bathroom, right? But my designs were done. And suddenly I wasn't in the mindset of, okay, I'm going to race through the hotel lobby, grab a sandwich there, take it up to the room, finish this, design for the morning. I called a buddy of mine from the Uber. I was like, hey, man, I have a free night in SF. Do you want to have dinner? And that was a great feeling. I was like, what just happened where I think I did really good designs? I did them in less time than I thought. And I feel like this relief, this just like, I'm back in control of my life. And that is something you can cultivate. You go, hey, man, you know what? Maybe for you, maybe it is in the morning. Let me just take that hour and really set my day up properly. Or maybe it's an afternoon thing, depending on your chronotype, and you set up the next day. I don't know. You brought up the phone. Can we talk about
Yeah.
the phone for a moment? Okay.
Sure.
Super popular. Tons of people I talk to, exact same thing. Phones are beautifully designed. Sound, image, habit to distract you. Near AO, as a friend, has written a lot of stuff about internal and external triggers, and they're just amazingly well designed. So what do you do?
So
Do you end up, what? Go on.
I do have one strategy which I have got, which is to enable the gray filters on the phone and make my phone black and white. And that does make it much easier to put down. However,
Fancy.
certain things do require color. And if you forget to switch it back on, if you switch it off, it can hook you in really easy.
Really
So that's
quickly.
my one
That's
thing. But as you
that
said,
is
they're
really
so
good.
well designed. They're like,
They are well designed.
they are, as you said, hook you in and bring you into
Hook you in.
whatever it is.
I didn't want to download an app. I didn't want to do something complicated. I just needed that moment when, if like a friend were sitting next to me and said, Stephen, really, do you want to be on your phone right now? That'd be enough for me to go, you know what? No, I'd rather be done early than like go to dinner and feel after dinner, I've got to try and finish stuff. Like I hate that feeling.
Of course.
We did with, Sukha is a simple website. The website we built, I basically took the 5 things you need that people talk about getting into flow. And I was like, why not just have one website with the big play button in the middle that did all of them, right? Instead of like, here's my music in this app, here's my timer in that app, here's my task list, here's my blocker. So when you hit play and the music starts, you get a QR code that pops up for a few seconds, shoot it with your phone, put it down. That's it. If you touch your phone, the smart assistant in your laptop will say, hey, Stephen, do you really need to be on your phone? And that just gives me that 1 second to say, who do I want to be?
It is so important. And I'm actually going to keep it on entertainment in a slightly different way, another tactic I have. Now, we've
Ooh,
talked on movies, and I love movie trivia. Die
I
Hard
know.
1,
I've heard you
Alan
talk
Rick.
about that.
Yeah. Love about Alan Rickman being dropped off the building at the end of Die Hard. We'll do
Yeah,
it on
with the
3,
watch.
but drop him on 1. Brilliant. But unfortunately, that's now caused a problem watching TV shows and movies in that I'm on IMDb trivia every time.
Oh boy.
So now I just leave the phone outside the room on the stairs. And I
Smart.
won't
Super
get up to
smart.
get it, but I can check it later. But the enjoyment factor I have in my TV shows and movies has gone through the roof. And kind of
I
tying
love
that
that you're
back,
thoughtful about this.
well, look, our life is meant to be meaningful and purpose. And you're saying about the greatness in it. And it's so true because there's a comedian who does tour in the US, an English guy named Jimmy Carr.
Hmm?
Have you heard of him at all?
I have not, but I don't know every comedian on earth.
No, of course. No, he's significantly bigger in the UK. He has toured the US, but Jimmy Carr be in his early 50s now, and up until his mid 20s, late 20s, he was a devout Catholic working in, I think it was Shell, in marketing,
Oh
and he
wow.
had his
Okay.
midlife crisis right then. Became an atheist, threw his job in,
Wow.
and started doing comedy. Had like just completely, I am going to do comedy, and the
Good
UK is
for
great for.
him.
And he said the point you're saying, what these companies are saying. He goes, good is the enemy of great. And he goes, I
Hmm.
had a good life, but I
Yeah.
didn't have a great life. And I was living somebody else's life by making, shareholders richer rather than living my life. The guy, like, he makes the most offensive comedic jokes you'll ever hear. But he's on where I've got this from is on the other podcast, The Diary of a CEO. He talks about it so sincerely and so profoundly,
Hmm.
and it is like everything with purpose, with meaning, with intent.
Hmm.
And he just seems so much more happy in his life.
And that's the thing is, if you don't take control of your life, you do end up that 80-year-old girl or guy on the sofa scrolling and double tapping, saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, I had that idea. Oh, I could have written that book. Oh yeah, I could have started that company." And you know what? That's miserable.
Yeah.
And guess what? No one wants to be around you. Who wants to be friends with a guy who's like, "Oh yeah, I could have done that. I could have been a contender." It's like, no, man. You have the possibility of today lying in front of you. Start with an intention. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, go, "What is the most important thing I could do so that I
Mm-hmm.
actually get the greatness out of me?" Because I refuse to die with that thing inside.
Yeah.
And that will guide your day, man. You will see in high relief what is important and what is a waste of your time.
That it is so true. And I'll give it another pop culture reference. Little indie movie. You probably know it. Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
big hit.
Well, it was medium here, but I loved it. Fantastic
Okay.
movie. Thought it was great start to
Yep.
finish.
Totally with
But
you.
you know the way like Greg Kinnear is the dad, he's got this motivational speech thing and it doesn't quite work out for him. He couldn't quite get it off the ground. They're driving in the van and Alan Arkin plays his father and he leans forward and he says to him, you tried. And he goes, you tried to do something that you cared about. Most people don't. And I include myself in that. And it was a beautiful but bitter moment. And he just said, thanks, Dad. And it meant so much to him that he'd recognized he had tried to do something different. And that is, again, the point Jimmy Carr makes. It's better to fail at something you really care about. Jim
Yeah.
Carrey says it about his father. His father took accountancy because he didn't want entertainment, because he was afraid of failure in entertainment, but then failed as an accountant. That's
Yes.
just tragic.
It is tragic. And there is something to that feeling of when you were in your lane doing the thing you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And in that case, you're talking about with the comedian, it was not being a shell in marketing or whatever, like
No.
you get that return and then you start to exude the positivity, like the energy that brings things to you. Opportunities come to you when you are in your lane. And
Yeah.
that, I'll tell you this, for me, yoga was a very important adjustment, almost like a chiropractic adjustment to my life, because it was around the time that I got out of film. And it
Yeah.
was definitely a moment where I had previously, my prior girlfriend, Allison,
Mhm.
she was the director of marketing for a large chain called Yoga Works.
Okay.
So when we were together, she gave me a yoga mat. She gave me a class card. She's like, try this. Like a good boyfriend, I tried it. After I'd done the 8, 10 classes, whatever, I didn't wake up the next day and feel like, oh, I have to go do this, right? So I let it go. And she was like, okay, you tried. 2 years later, after we had broken up, and she's still one of my closest friends, good friends with Laura.
Yeah.
She, She had done what she could do. And I found yoga kind of on my own. I was traveling in India with my dad and just happened to this guy teaching yoga in a forest. And I got it. And if I had had cell service, I would have called Allison then and said like, oh, I wasn't ready, but I see now what you were trying to give me, this gift. And
Yeah.
it was not just a physical gift. It is not for me a physical practice as much as it is an alignment of kind of like the spiritual and the physical worlds, which sounds
Yeah.
kooky because I've done a lot of different kinds of fitness stuff and I have never experienced that before. And it's how I met my wife. It's how I left film. Like there's definitely an element of Die Hard 5 where it's like, this is so misaligned with who I am. And the company News Corp where I worked was value misalignment huge from who I was. And that showed me that. And that is also how Laura helped me name my company. Because when we were putting together this idea for a flow state app, let us help people who want to do something with their lives to get into flow, right? We had an early version of this that was running with a working title. Laura, I met in yoga. I was living in Manhattan. I married the girl on the mat to my left. When we went, no kidding, right? When we went,
this is a movie in itself.
This is a great movie. I think, of course, everyone wants to tell you the story of their life, but I'll be succinct. So when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Bali. And I'm very grateful that my life has worked out where I can do things like that and go away for weeks. So on the way there, I said to her, I think we're onto something. Like people are starting to sign up for this, even the shitty version it was then, but it kind of worked. It's like, but we need a title. I need a word. Like Amazon is a strong word that's not like bookstore, Nike's a strong word. It's not like shoe company, and I want to find something. It's not like flow state app, distraction blocker, that. And she's like, hey, I wish that for you. We'll be gone for like almost 2 weeks. Maybe the universe will speak to you. So when we landed, I said to her, do you mind? I think it might seed my unconscious if I talk to maybe 2 or 3 people who are using it right now and just ask them, what's your favorite thing? And maybe they'll say something that over the next 2 weeks will like bubble up and it'll become like the name, right? So she's like, go for it. I'm going to the pool. You go have your Zooms, my friend. I'm on my honeymoon, right? So I did. I posted in the little group chat in what the previous version was and said, who has 5-10 minutes? 3 people said yes, chatted with them. Hey, Peter, what's your favorite feature? You love the music, you love the timers, you love the smart assistant. Okay, thanks a lot. Third guy was going to the wrap up. I'd promised, 5-10 minutes. I was like, hey, it's been 8 minutes. I want to respect your time. We can go now. Thank you. And he said, Stephen, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, dude, I don't know that well. What was the right question? And he said, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I was like, dude, we charge like 30 cents a day. Like I do this for free. Tony, my partner, does it for free. We just want to pay the server bills because we want people to have this. I want the world to be better, right? So great. I'll take the bait. Why do you pay $10 a month? He said, the last year or two, I realized I have 2 kinds of days. At 3:00, I'm playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or at 6:00, I'm down on myself. Where did the day go? I suck. I'll have to get up early in the morning, try and finish stuff before. He's like, I realized the difference is, did I open your website and hit play in them? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, wow, I was asking the wrong questions. You won that round. So I go to dinner with Laura. I was like, I talked to this guy today who is more articulate about what I'm doing with my life than I am. And I told her what he said. And she's like, that's really good. You should hire him. He's a smart guy. And so we were going to bed. And Laura, we're brushing our little teeth in our little bathrobes because we think we're all cool,
of course.
The hotel. She looks at me. She goes, in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit terms, karma, what's your dharma, what's your duty, what's your, prana, like your life force.
Mm-hmm.
That guy described to you Sukha. You wanted the universe to speak to you. It answered. That guy said, I want to feel in control of my life. I want to feel in my lane, doing what I'm meant to do. And it feels good. I'm in control. I can do it with ease. She's like, that's what you should call your company. And she went to bed. I took my phone. I looked for the website, the happiness company, the Sukha Company. The Sukha.co is available. $14 US. Bought it. Told my partner, I was like, hey, we just bought a website. And that's how we named our company. And that is ultimately why I'm here. is I don't care about the tool. What I care is that someone looks up and they go, my God, I didn't realize I could be in control of my day again.
Yeah. And I think that's a really fascinating one because you often see celebrities say things like, oh, I'm going back to a dumb phone. And I'm like, well, that's a dumb idea. Okay.
That's hard.
Sorry. Like,
That's hard.
you don't actually want to do that. You want to get control back. And that's not the
Yeah.
means to do it
Peter,
because,
that's it.
yeah, like say I'm going to see you in Austin. Well, I want my plane tickets. I want my wallet. These are all on my phone to begin with. So
Yeah.
I don't want
And
to
you want
give
your
that up.
Google Maps so when I don't show up, you can still find your way to my house.
Yeah, Uber, take me there. I don't really care.
Exactly.
$20,
Where
grand.
the hell is Puri?
He said he'd be here. But you touched on a really, really fascinating point, and I'll share from my own experience. So as a salesperson, I wasn't performing as I wanted to when I first became a tech salesperson.
Yep.
But my previous sales role before I joined tech, I'd been hired. They'd use this independent guy who was working for the Irish entity of what's called the Objective Management Group. So people
Okay.
might know Dave Curlin. They do tons of research. Every study they have has a few 100,000 people in it.
Wow.
And they have two assessments on it for salespeople, sales individuals and sales managers. So on those assessments, I'm 92% salesperson, 94% sales leader. And I was like not crushing it. So this is bizarre to me. So I go to him and he starts taking me through the process. And I'm like, after a few months, he goes, have you figured out anything? And I was like, oh, well, I've learned this. And he goes, no, but you actually knew all that when you came here. And I've really become friends with this guy and whatnot. And he goes, problems in your head. And I went, what? And he goes, I've known this since the day you walked in. But he goes, you were
Really?
so sure that that was your skill sets that I had to go through this journey with you. He said, however, I'm not equipped to deal with you, but I've gone to this psychotherapist. I'm good friends with him now. Why don't you go and see him? And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Now, my psychotherapist who I went to is a man in his mid-60s. He's happily married to Scott. But before he was married to Scott or a psychotherapist, he was a CEO, HR manager, and a priest. Now that's a
Wow.
guy with a life.
That's interesting experience. I want to be on his podcast. I want to hear his stories. Oh my God.
I haven't actually mentioned it to him. I might actually throw it out there and see if I could get him on because the story is genuinely fascinating. And I've sent a number of friends on to him since. What people don't realize is sometimes he'll take people on and other times he'll let people go. But he always tells us bits of his life story. And we've all been told different bits. The bits that we needed to hear, he's told us. And it's just, that's the difference it's made. And that has liberated my life about five and a half years ago. I went for the first time and my whole life has changed from that.
I can't imagine how we could top. We should just end here because that is a great note to end on, and I'm humbled.
Well, do you know
Thank you
what?
for having me on.
Pleasure. But look, you know what? We are coming towards the end because we like to keep it under the hour anyway, Stephen. And we do like to get to know the person. And you have shared a lot about yourself, and we really do appreciate that.
5'11", dark hair, dark sense of humor. Anything. I like margaritas. Back when I used to drink, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah, well,
What else do you want to know?
That's okay. Well, I tell you told me some really exciting news. Something's happening in 8 weeks.
Yep. Never wanted to have children. And with Laura, I was like, wow, the world would be better if there were like little versions of you. So we are going to have our first child in 8 weeks.
Exciting times.
Yeah, super excited about that. Already Laura's waking up 4 times a night to go pee and go have toast with almond butter on it and stuff. And it's been an experience. Ask me in a year.
Have
I'll
you
look like
learned
70.
how you're, well, yes, that'll definitely happen, but how you know that you're wrong about everything now. Okay, nothing.
Right.
Like,
I've
you
heard
may
about
not have been right, but you're definitely wrong now.
Yes. I heard I get a couple weeks of they kind of need you and adore you, and then it's just downhill.
Yeah, pretty much. But it comes back up. It comes back up.
Okay.
What I will be really interesting to see, and this is definitely for a follow-up episode, and I say this to anyone who's...
this was so fun. I'm back whenever you want.
Okay, so here's the thing I want to take in a follow-up question. Years' time from now, what has being a parent taught you about yourself that you didn't know?
Okay, you're going to remember this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me with that in a year, and I will give you an honest answer. I may be crying out of being tired, but I will give you an honest answer.
Oh, that was the other thing that I also think affected my sales performance. Ben did not sleep until he was 2 years and 9 months, at which point Neve was 6 months pregnant on Sophie, and she didn't sleep till she was 2. So
Oh,
I
wow.
basically had 5 years of
No sleep.
highly interrupted sleep. And then I had to travel to London a lot as well, which actually had its perks for me because I got to sleep in a hotel room.
You're right. This is so great to be away from my family. I can sleep
Yeah.
again.
In terms of that, others hobby interests that you have on the weekend, you've mentioned yoga, but do you do hiking, walking, just hanging out with
Yeah,
friends?
some hiking. I have a daily yoga practice. Part
Cool.
of why we moved to Austin is to be close to my dad. My dad is getting older. He had some heart surgery, and he and Laura are close. And Laura's like, you know what? We should leave California and we should live close to your dad. Make sure he's always okay. That's what we do. And it's really nice. He drops by unannounced. He has the little code to our doors. So I'll go downstairs like after this podcast, and dad will be
That'll
down
be
there
there.
like in the kitchen. Hey, dad.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And, my old man had heart surgery as well earlier this year. He'd valves repaired. And, they went in to do 2. They were in there. We'll do 3. I think the things we can do in terms of medicine are incredible. The recovery paths, there's a lot of negativity and challenges in this world right now. And there's no doubt about that. I think the best thing we can do is try and get the best out of it and be the best forward for other people as well. Little things like really, if you're getting a coffee tomorrow, make eye contact with the barista and ask them how they are and really mean it. Don't have your
I
phone in your hand for that one.
I love that. I'll tell you a funny thing. So Laura and I, it's hot here in Austin, like HOT hot. And when we drive, we always have in our side, the little side pocket of your door, some cans of water. And if we see someone who needs water, we're just always like, hey man, you want a water? And when it's 90 degrees out, which is what, 30 something, I think in Celsius?
Yeah, would be about that. Yeah, about 34, 35. Yeah.
34. Yeah. I know what it is in kilometers. I'm not sure in Celsius. But anyway, it's hot. So we always offer them. We're just like, hey, one. And unsurprisingly, everyone's like, wow, thank you.
It's amazing the smallest gesture, like a simple little thing would be Christmas Eve in 23. My aforementioned son, Michael, him and his mother and my daughter Sophie, we went to the pub bar down the village on Christmas Eve in the afternoon for a drink. He'd never had a pint of Guinness. So I was buying a pint of Guinness. It was kind of a cool father-son moment. But when we went to find a seat, there was a guy sitting at like a 6-seater table on his own. And we said, oh no, we'll go somewhere else. He goes, no, you take it. And he insisted that we take it. And it was such a small gesture. And then he was ordering
Oh,
a
so
drink.
nice.
So I paid for his drink and he was like, no, you don't have to do that. And I said, I know, but I want to because you were really nice to me. So I'd like to do something nice for you. It's Christmas. Enjoy. It's only one drink.
Merry Christmas.
Exactly. I think on that note, it is the perfect time to finish. It has been an absolute pleasure.
This has been so much fun. Thank you. I am honored to be here, and this was super fun.
Anyone wants to get in touch with you,
anyone's still out there,
they will. We'll hear lots about it. I will do shorts. I'll put them up on YouTube as well. I'll send you all the links, and the very, very best of luck continuing with the app, and most of all, best of luck with parenthood in the near future.
Thank you so much. Okay, have a great evening. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.